Hello everyone, so right before I begin with this effect, I'm gonna give it a shuffle and a couple cuts so you don't think there is any setup. I'm gonna ask you to please point at any card you want, don't take it. This card, you read the 2 of hearts, don't matter if I look at it. All I'm going to do is just put a 2 of hearts right there outside, right before I lost it. And I'm gonna ask you to please give me any small number between 5 and 10. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now this is not a 2 of hearts, but just to verify that the 6 card is not your card. Okay, so I'm just gonna put it right there. So now I'm gonna lose completely the 2 of hearts into the deck of playing cards. You say the 6th position. Now watch carefully, by riffling and by snapping my fingers, and the 6th card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6th card, it happens to be the 2 of hearts. So let me start giving you a quick overview about what happened, and then I get into details on the technique. I had the spectator to pick any card, okay, the 6 of spades. I square the 6 of spades right under the indifferent card, okay. So when I turn over this pack, I'm catching the selection in the indifferent card. So I'm keeping 2 cards, the selection in the indifferent card. Then I do a double lift, I leave it out jog, so they think this is the selection, but the selection remains on top. I have the spectator to give me a small number between 5 and 10. They say 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th card is not your card. And notice the way I did the counting with my thumb, so I can reverse the sequence, and the selection is all the way below, the 6 of spades. So I can square the 6 of spades with a 3 of hearts, which is an indifferent card. I turn it over, so at this point I have the selection face up. Then I lost the card they think is the selection, and then I do any magical gesture. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th card is going to be the selection. Now I ask the spectator between 5 and 10, so you can keep in a small stack of cards. Okay, so it's hard for a spectator to tell, but I will explain those details later on in this performance. Now let me get into details on this technique. There is no specific rule. I'm going to leave these 2 cards face up. This is going to be the selection, the ace of spades, and the indifferent card is going to be the 8 of clubs. Now when I spread and the spectator wants this card, in the 8 of clubs, it's only held on by the middle and ring finger. The index finger is not really contacting the indifferent card. It needs to be free from the index. So when I try to square the ace of spades with 8 of clubs at a decent speed, without delaying too much, it has to look natural. So without delaying too much, I'm gonna try to use the index finger as a wall, so it hits right there. It doesn't go any further beyond this indifferent card, which is the 8 of clubs. So basically, the only reference point that I'm using is my index finger by using it as a wall. It hits right there. Now you may wonder, how can you keep these 2 cards aligned so you don't twist them? You don't end up like this, like this. You can keep it straight. And also how you can just not keep it too much out jog or in jog. And that's pretty much by practicing. There is no any other finger that I'm using as a reference. And when you really have a lot of practice, you can just square and notice it's not perfectly aligned, but when you turn it over and by snatching, you can conceal in that swing motion the imperfections. And by the time you come back, they're going to be perfectly aligned. So let me go very quickly. Then want this card over here. Notice I'm grabbing these 2 cards. That's just by pure practice. There is not really the need to really use fingers as a reference, but it's better in this case. I'm using my index finger, so to keep a better alignment between the selection, which is the ace of spades, and the indifferent card. But like I said, the more practice you have, you don't really have to snatch away really hard. So I place the stack right below, and because the cards are slightly bent up, when you put them back to back, you can tell, okay, there is a little gap right there. And by doing this double lift, I squeeze over here with a middle finger, so the opposite corner lift, so my thumb doesn't have a hard time trying to lift up those 2 cards. And you don't have to do this, you can just simply do a regular double lift. But the way I did it in the performance, I'm just explaining, I just did this. Okay, you don't have to do it. Then I leave this in different card right there, and that selection remains on top. So the next, I'm gonna reverse the counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's assume the spectator say the 5th card. This is gonna be a bit more tricky. You really have to keep these two cards, the indifferent card in that selection, aligned as much as you can, regardless how quick you are. You may flash over here the little peep, but you know, just be careful the way you align these two cards. Turn it over, and because you have 3, at least more than 1 card, by the time you turn it back down, you square, it's gonna be hard to tell how many cards you have left. And that's why I asked between 5 and 10, and not between 1 and 10. So that's about it. I'm just using the index finger over here as a wall. So notice when I do the spread, because I'm using this indifferent card to square it right above the selection, I try not to keep this indifferent card too separated from the rest and making it too obvious. So I just jog the selection, and then I square. This card is contacting my index finger, which, like I said before, the index finger is the only finger that is not touching that selection nor the card right above, just the middle and the 3rd finger. The reason is because when I flip it over, I'm going to remove the middle and ring finger away, so the only finger that is contacting the spread is the index finger. Over here, with my thumb I push down, so I can keep those 2 cards right above the remaining pile, and the spread goes right below. Okay, once again, I spread, I point. The reason I point is just so I can get a bit more time to clear my index finger away from the indifferent card. So this is what's happening. From below is hitting the index finger, the thumb is clipping over here the remaining space from the spread. So you don't really have to open the middle and ring finger, you just release the pressure. But I'm just exaggerating so you can see better how the index is the only finger that remains right there. But like any other move, you practice this move slowly before you start getting a natural speed. But anyway, they will never be completely square. That's why you snatch. Now my main concern, like I say, is gonna be when you put them face to face and you turn it over. You have to be completely careful that you don't flash the peep. That's it. Now there are a few other ways magicians take advantage of this technique. For example, instead of turning over the whole deck like this, they just flip it over, these 2 cards, the selection and the remaining card, which was right above the selection. Let me show it to you at full speed. Let's say the spectator they want this card over here. I don't know if that looks too obvious. The 10 of spades. Okay, I'm gonna leave it right there. And I'm gonna cut it, and the selection remains right there on top. Because when I flip it over, in this case, the King of Hearts, I use the card right above and flip it over. But I think that's a bit more obvious. So that's gonna be up to you, the way you prefer to do it. I personally like to do it better this way, by flipping over the whole remaining pile, so I can snatch, and it gives me a few more seconds to completely align these 2 cards. And at least it justifies better the move for a final production in this performance, particularly by doing this, and appear their selection right there. In which this performance is a nice way to present this technique.